Hi, everybody. Welcome to Homeschool Minnesota. My name is Dayle Annand. I'm so excited to have you guys here today. Homeschool Minnesota is a ministry podcast outreach of Minnesota Association of Christian Home Educators, MACHE. We are so glad you joined us today. Today, I get to have Dr. Rich Griffith with me. And you guys, you know how much I enjoy having good books to talk about. That's what we do primarily on here because homeschoolers love books and we like to bring them all to you. This book right here, Discipleship is Leadership by Dr. Rich Griffith, is published by D6 Family Ministries. Rich is an associate professor of youth ministry at Toccoa Falls. You can correct me if I'm wrong there.
That's right.
College. He has a Master of Theology and a Doctorate of Youth Ministry from Fuller Theological Seminary. He is in Youth, Family, and Culture, which is an awesome major to have a PhD in. He has worked with teens and families for more than 30 years and is a single dad to 3 adopted sons. That's a whole nother podcast we're going to get into. So unfortunately for you guys, you're only going to get a snippet of that, but we're going to talk about that another time. Anyways, welcome, Rich. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I have a real heart for homeschool and homeschool families. So this is exciting for me.
Yeah, it's so good. I love homeschool families.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I was one for years and years. And I always tell everybody this time of year, I start to get kind of nostalgic and I miss like buying school supplies. And because my kids are all graduated and it's like, oh, so
Yeah.
this is me living vicariously through all my listeners, which is great.
I don't like the expense of the school supplies, but the smell and the newness is
I
really
know
cool.
the crayons. There's nothing better than a box of new crayons. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So good. Well, I just want to talk about this little book, you guys. Okay, first of all, this book would be a great, I always like to give ideas of how this can be used practically for you. So you're not, because books are an investment. And so you need to know, what does this do for me? So this book, I'm telling you, is awesome for you to sit down with your husband, with your wife, or just you and just work through it about how am I going to take on the discipleship of my family, my kids, my grandbabies, all the things. You can do it with a small group. You can do it, those of you who are in a co-op and you have like mom time in your co-op, it's a great book to go through in that and to talk with each other about it and then hold each other accountable. I'm always big into that. Don't just talk about it, do it and hold each other accountable to it. But this book is broken down into sections based on child's development, starting at about 1.5 and all the way through adulthood, because we all know our adult children still need discipleship. And I love that. And so you also broke down the leadership model and the discipleship model in each chapter. And then at the end of the chapter, you give them thought-provoking questions that pertain to your child. Like, so your answers are not going to be the same. It's not like it's just, okay, so what did you read? It's like, no, how would you apply this to your kids? And can you talk a little bit about why did you set the book up like that?
Yeah, I think my first confession on this is I spent 30 years discipling other people's children. And then when I had adopted my sons, I had no idea how to disciple my kids because it's different when they're in your home.
Is.
And so the other part, and this must not have been the bio, what really led to this is when I finished my doctorate of ministry, I actually am a glutton for punishment. I went back and got a second master's degree in organizational leadership. And so as I was going through these courses, I thought, these organizational leadership theories sure do sound a lot like discipleship.
Wow.
And so with my background in child development and youth, family, and culture, I realized putting Erik Erikson's psychosocial development of young people with a certain ages and stages, and we can talk a little bit about this, so it's like, how do I disciple my kids developmentally? And then what is the best leadership model to do that? So for instance, not to give away the whole book, but like the first stage of Erikson's psychosocial development is trust versus mistrust, right? It's a lot of nurturing and things like that. And so let's face it, other than warm fuzzies and having babies that you can cuddle with and things like that, baby can't do a whole lot for you. I mean, you're lacking sleep, they're pooping and peeing all the time. And, I don't want to get graphic, but you know what babies do, right? Yeah. So really, when I really have been praying about this and looking at the models and looking at Erikson's psychosocial development, it made sense that the role model for this, obviously, we are the first image our children get of Christ, of God, right? And so Christ is the biblical model for this, and servant leadership is actually the leadership model to use. So kind of looking at those ages and stages and developmentally and what leaders, a lot of people think that their preferred style of leadership, they think that will get them through whole life. But the reality is not everybody through certain periods of time need servant leadership. Sometimes they need to stand on their own so that we don't become helicopter or bulldozer parents, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
So just breaking it down by age, stage, and then leadership model. So I don't know how much more you want to go into that, but really breaking that down into stages of life, and then going through, because one of the things I have a heart for is intergenerational ministry.
Yes.
Because a lot of our young people leave the church. Young people who were born and raised in the church leave the church because they don't have enough intergenerational interaction. So I want adults to know. That's why I put adults in this section, this book too, is they have valuable things to contribute as well. So that's kind of why it's broken down that way. I don't know if that helps answer the question. We can.
No, that's great. I love how, like, the core, you got core years, compassion years, cultivating years, and creating years.
Yes.
And so, the core years are like from ages 1.5 to 3.
Right.
And for those of us who have grandbabies that age, that's completely, the core stuff is happening. And then the compassion years are like, so the core years is I am loved by God. That's what you're trying to get across to your kids.
And that's the trust versus mistrust, right? Because they need, again, children experience their first image of God through their parents, and they need to know that they're loved. Now, when you go into the next stage, which is really crucial too, as you mentioned, the compassion years, I belong to God. Because one of those things that happen in those years, especially in the adolescence where it's the model of coach.
Yes.
There's teenagers, the primary task of adolescence is identity formation, right? So they're exploring more on their own and things like that. So they need to understand that their identity is found in God, not in all the crazy things the culture is telling them, right? Sexuality, achievement, all this other stuff. So that's the four. I mean, one of the four things that I feel like we need to embed in our children so that by the time they get to be older adolescents, they move in these different psychosocial stages and developmental stages. So for most people, this could sound boring, but to be honest with you, it gives you such a great way to know your child and know, oh, this is why they're doing this, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So you have children, you said, correct?
Yes. Yeah, 3. Well, 6 if you count my in-law kids, which I do.
Right, right. So if you remember the time when your children were younger, when they did not have abstract thinking skills yet, and they did something really goofy, and your question was, why did you do that?
And what were you thinking?
Remember, what was their answer?
I don't know.
Exactly, right? I don't know. Because their prefrontal cortex, logical part of their brain, is not developed yet, right?
Right.
So they need to understand that they don't need to be shamed for something that they legitimately don't know. It just seemed like something to do, right? They're exploring. They're not being disrespectful. They literally do not know why they did what they did.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's crazy. I mean, because we just can't grasp that we were actually the same way. We don't know why we did the dumb things that we did.
Sometimes I still wonder why I do the dumb things
I know. I still do dumb things. And I'm like, why did I do that? But then, it's like, then in the compassion years, it's I belong to God. And then cultivating years as teenagers, like 12 to about 24, is I have passion for God. And then over the age of 25 is I have purpose in God. I love, and you guys, I'm going to tell you something. This book is, it's not super thick. You can do this. You can actually, because you know why, guys? Everything in here is like a gem. It's not like it's a bunch of fluff that is like, rich is a man of few words, but deep thoughts. I like that.
Oh, thank you. I think one of the things I've had, I serve on the board of the Association of Youth Ministry Educators. And for years, I used to go to this thing called youth specialties. So that youth specialties tend to be much more geared toward practitioner. Association of Youth Ministry Educators is more ivory tower, like high academic. And my goal has always been, so thank you for pointing this out. People always say you have a way of taking these academic concepts and bringing it down to a practitioner level because I need that.
Yes.
And so I like to think that these books fill that gap, that parents can read it, grandparents can read it and go, oh, that makes complete sense. Well, you just made me feel really good about this book. I'm going to cry.
Oh, good. Well, and that's the thing is that, we're busy. Families are busy.
Yeah.
And the one thing we don't need is one more book that is just going to be like staring at us, making us feel guilty because we don't have time to read it.
Oh.
And this is one that I mean, 15 minutes a day. And you probably could get through the one part of it and even maybe start working on, if not working on the questions, at least get you thinking about them.
Yeah.
And processing them. And that's what you really need as a parent. And I'm going to say grandparent too, because I was looking through this and I'm like, my husband and I just spent the weekend babysitting our 2 little grandsons who are ages 6 months and 3.5. And we were, first of all, saying this is why 50-year-old people don't have children.
Amen.
totally exhausted. But the other thing is that we both were like, this is ministry because we are discipling these boys.
Yeah,
We're discipling them. And grandparents are sometimes the best disciplers because they're one step removed away from all the discipline that has to happen. And so they
absolutely.
become a confidant to their grandbaby. So if you are a
Yeah.
grandparent, this is for you too. Don't think you get off the hook because you're a grandma and grandpa,
Well,
you
there's
know?
a great ministry too. I'll put you all, your listeners and you guys onto this. Legacy Coalition with Larry Fowler. I don't know if you're
Okay.
familiar with
I
it.
have heard of him.
Oh, well, they're awesome for grandparents because I know I'm grandparent too. And I know a
Okay.
lot of times as grandparents, we're like, oh, we get to spoil our grandkids. Yes, we
Yes.
do get to
And
do
we
that,
do.
right? Right. But we also, so as a professor, you know how many of my students come in and their grandparents were a significant part of their faith development,
Yeah.
as well as parents. And I would say that there's a first book I wrote called Voices Helping Our Children and Youth Listen to Wise Counsel. And we have to surround our children with multiple voices that have our same Christian worldview because, to be
Yep.
honest with you, your kids are going to be discipled by something, some voice,
Exactly.
right? So the question is, are we the stronger and better voice in the lives of our young people so that by the time we raise them up, they are in solid footing in their faith? And no matter what the culture says, they're going to be able to counter that because they've had multiple good voices talking to them and guiding them through this discipleship process.
Exactly. And talking about the discipleship process, one of the things you discuss is simplifying it. Like
Yes.
I think that a lot of people discipleship is a huge scary word because it
Right.
means like this is a lifelong commitment. I got to walk this person through the thick and the thin and the highs and the lows and all the
Yeah.
things. And how do I do that? And I don't know if I want to do that. And I don't have time for that. What if I do it wrong? And
Yeah.
all this stuff starts coming in at you. What
Yeah.
tell us about simplifying it?
Oh man,
Take that away.
you hit the nail on the head because I think again, one of the reasons that young people leave the church is because we have professionalized it, right? And
Yes.
so what we and so particularly for parents who are homeschooling, right? They understand the concept of formal education. You got your curriculum, you got your class time, you got a structure, but sometimes we learn more or just as much, at least from non-formal education or informal education. So for instance, the process of Deuteronomy 6 says, as you go, as you
Mhm.
walk, as you lie down, as you get up, have these discussions with your children. And there are things that are happening in the home. There's things that happen in the community of the church. And then it's the same thing for evangelism, Matthew 28, as
Oh,
you go make disciples. Very few parents, now maybe your homeschool parents are a little different because they are used to getting curriculum, but
yeah.
most parents don't sit there and go, okay, well, let's get on Lifeway and let's go ahead and see what books we're going to use for discipling our kids, right?
Right.
I would share a story if I can with
Yeah.
and particularly it ties into the adoption thing with my youngest son because I had to take him to school. He goes to a private school. I couldn't homeschool. I'm a single dad. That would drive me.
Yeah, you can only do so much,
I
Rich.
did
It's okay.
homeschool my middle son to get him through high school. That's a whole nother story. But
Yeah.
so what we would do is we would get in the truck and it's about a 40-minute drive. And I wanted to make sure I drove him to school. And we would simply open the Bible and we'd go through the Gospel of John and made it through that. And my question always would be, he'd read about a chapter each day. My
Mhm.
question would be, what does that mean to you? It's a very simple question, right? How do you
Yeah.
apply this to your life? What does it mean to you? Then we went into the book of Psalm. Now here, I'm going to try not to get emotional. You'll hear my heart on this.
I hope that
Um,
you do a little bit though, because that's good for people to see
yeah.
why that's important.
It's so life-giving. We're going through the book of Psalms. And so by the time we get to Psalm 18, again, I ask him, so what does that mean to
Yeah.
you? And he goes, okay, Dad, I get it. He says the Psalms always kind of start out the same way, like God, why do my enemies prosper? I wish you'd smash their teeth in, blah, 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 all this other stuff. And then he goes, but by the end of the Psalm, he's always writing something like, but you're my God and my fortress. And, I praise you, whatever, that pattern. I'm like, okay, good. I'm glad you see that. But what does it mean to you?
Yeah.
Now, coming from a kid who's been in the system and who was
Mm.
adopted,
Yeah.
his words were, his words were, what that tells me is God's never going to leave me or forsake me.
Oh.
I'm like, my gosh, I had to pull the truck over. I was getting all
Oh,
teary eyed. I'm like, I can't drive. But it was such just opening scripture and reading it together and saying, what does that mean to you?
it
And I
heals
have
his
a
heart.
good thing for parents. Like, number one, I think as parents, we always have this imposter syndrome. Well, am I doing the right thing? Am I good enough? I want to remind our parents, listen, you need to hear this. Adam and Eve had God as a perfect father, and they
Exactly.
still blew it. Adam and Eve did.
That's such a
right?
good point. Yeah.
The other thing too is I think you're right when you say words like mentoring and discipleship, people get freaked out. I ask
Yeah.
people in church all the time, would you mentor this kid or whatever? Oh, I can't do that. I'm not equipped. I'm not able. I'm like, look, all right, would you do it was called spiritual nurture first, right? Before
Mhm.
you even discipleship. Can you spiritually care for this kid? Yes. As parents, I think sometimes this is why we hand them over our kids over to the professionals because we think, what if they ask something that I'm not equipped to answer? Maybe their theological question is deeper than I'm ready to answer.
Mhm.
This is so good. I had to learn this. It's so simple. Here's what you tell your kid. Number one, that's a great question.
Yeah.
I don't know. Number two, oh, and this is the best part, but let's find out together.
I love
So
that.
when you say that's a great question, you're acknowledging their intellect, you're acknowledging their worth and the worth of the question, right? The second part is just honestly, it acknowledges our own humility. We don't know it all.
Yeah.
And then number three, you invite them on a journey, say, let's find out together. Now you're on a spiritual journey. That is discipleship. And you
Yeah.
discover together and you ask questions and you do a little bit of research. Maybe not so much on the internet nowadays, but you can find places to do some good research. And so this is one of the things I've had to start doing with my kids. So it doesn't make me afraid of discipling my kids as I go.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, as homeschool families, I just to break it down to them specifically, it's oftentimes because and I know I struggled with this. So I'm this is me too, okay? Straight up, not a judgment call, just
Yeah,
an
sure.
observation.
Yeah, yeah,
But, we use Christian curriculum, we use Christian,
yeah,
science, we use Christian all the things. And we think to ourselves, I disciple my kids all day long. I give them the word all day long.
yeah,
I'm teaching them about creation. I'm teaching them about history from the biblical perspective. I'm even putting church history in there. We've talked about Martin Luther and we've talked about George Whitefield and
right.
all the things.
Hmm.
And we think to ourselves, that's good. That's good. But what it tends to do, guys, and just a thought, is it makes it kind of a legalistic thing.
Amen.
Have to break it. Discipleship is taking all of that knowledge and making it practical and personal so it becomes a heart thing
Yeah,
and getting it from here to here. And so it's literally not enough to just give them Christian curriculum and then
yeah,
send them to youth group and send them to take them to church once
right.
a week and call it a day and maybe a missions trip, maybe a little bit of, worldview weekend or whatever. You have to figure out ways to get it from here to here, from the head to the heart. And
Yeah.
so that's discipleship, and that's
Yeah.
completely separate from homeschooling.
Yeah, and can I say too, there's
Yeah.
a leadership guru named John Cotter, and he says, and this is so true. I found it in church and in class, homeschool, we teach to the head, but John Cotter, which is so true, says 80% of change actually comes from the heart.
Yeah.
Right? We feel compelled by Christ, and therefore, then we have the information, we act on it, right? And I think
Yeah.
so. This is discipleship. Take your kids, go have ice cream.
Yeah.
Our kids are in a culture where we don't know how to play anymore. As an adult,
Mhm.
you forget how to play. Well, playing together is great discipleship, right? You're
Yep.
teaching them how to actually enjoy the Lord, taste and see that the Lord is good, right?
Yeah.
It's not, so that's the informal learning. I think we negate things that are very important, especially in a culture that doesn't know how to play anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I think just spending time with our kids and giving them an opportunity to just feel opened up. Talk a little bit, you talk about being a safe place to fail.
Yeah,
Can you
man.
talk about that? I love that. I love that. The whole
Well,
safe
first of
place
all,
to fail.
thank you for actually reading the book. Sometimes I get on these podcasts, people haven't read the book. So I always tell folks too that, our kids are going to make mistakes. We make mistakes. But the thing about it is we learn from our mistakes, right? And sort of the spiritual concept, you ever notice that most of our spiritual growth comes in the valleys, not on the mountaintop?
Exactly.
We get refreshed on the mountaintop, but we grow and we go through struggles in the valley. And sometimes when our kids fail, they're going to feel like they're in a valley, but actually it's our successes that can really cause us to not grow
Right.
because we get stuck in our success.
Mhm.
Sometimes we have to fail and we have to let our kids fail so that they learn something from it.
Right.
We have another 5-point process in our home that goes like this. If you make a mistake, if you fail, number one, own up to it.
Yeah.
2, apologize for it. 3, make it right if you can. 4, learn from it. And 5, which is the hardest part, is move on.
Don't yeah. Forgive
Like,
yourself and keep going forward.
right? We can't, guilt our kids or put shame on them. And there's a chapter in here that talks about shame, guilt versus, or inferiority versus industry, guilt versus shame. And so I think as Christian parents, we want the best for our children,
Yeah.
but sometimes the best is just being in relationship, right? It's
Yeah.
just, okay, you failed. What did you learn from it? And I love you anyway,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because like I said, we're all going to make mistakes and we learn from them, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do you mean? Like, okay, so one of the other things that I thought was interesting is you talk about this was on the note page that I got for you, but it's also, I saw it in your book, is transactional leadership.
Yeah.
And I think that this is super important for parents to understand the difference between actual leadership and
Yeah.
transactional leadership. And what does that all mean?
Yeah. Thank you. That's one I struggle with. And there are biblical models of this too that are in the book. But a
Yeah.
lot of parents have a hard time. Transactional leadership is for your younger ages, like 6 to 11, somewhere around there.
Mhm.
And by the way, some of these principles overlap a little bit. They flow in and out. You may always have to go back to trust versus mistrust.
Yeah.
For instance, if trust has been broken. But for the most part, parents have a hard time 6 to 11. That's when they're learning the rules of society, how to engage, how to socialize. So there's going to be, transactional leadership like Moses, and God said, if you do this, then these
Yes.
good things will happen. If you don't do these things, then these bad things. That's transactional, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the role of a cop. You're teaching your kids all these things to fit in. So a very short synopsis of the chapter. Where parents have a hard time moving into is what's called transformational leadership. And you
Yeah.
move from being a cop to a coach.
Yes.
And the consequences have to be more natural now. Don't impose hard consequences because your kids at that age, 12, 13, 14, you got to realize they're in just a couple years and it goes by quick.
It
They
does.
have to learn how to deal with the natural consequences of their actions, good or bad.
Mhm.
You've got the foundation of transactional leadership. They know the rules, right?
Right.
Now they're going to learn whether they succeed or fail or make mistakes or whatever.
Wow.
And transformational leadership is, okay, I'm going to be more of a coach. So now when you need me, I will be there to help support you and just to ask you questions. What did you learn from it? What could you have done better next time? And then give them opportunities to actually practice more of a coaching, like you would do soccer. I coach my kids soccer, right?
Yeah.
And so when I was coaching them, if they made a mistake, my role was not to get onto them. And trust me, you know this too. When you make a
Yes.
mistake, you know it better than anybody else. And when somebody comes back to remind you of the mistake in a cop kind of role, you already feel bad and you just want to learn to grow for it. But when
Yeah.
somebody's coaching you through it feels different being a cop and a coach, doesn't it?
Yes. Yes.
So
It
I
does.
think we don't want to shame them. We want to go ahead and coach them and say, what can you learn? What can you do better? And let them deal with the natural consequences. I think I
Yes.
share a story in the book about that with my son who got in the vehicle with somebody he wasn't supposed to when he was 16 years old. And I didn't have to put any consequences because he had some natural consequences that came out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the safest place for our kids to fail should be our home.
Absolutely.
The safest
Absolutely.
place for them to make the biggest mistake should be in our own home when we
Yeah.
can help them walk through it and when we can help them. And when they're adults and they make big mistakes, the safest place for them to come to get the help that they need
Yeah.
and the counsel that they need is our home.
Yeah. The coolest thing for happened to me is when at the time, 21-year-old, 20-year-old,
Mhm.
he went out to be with his sisters. Again, adopted, but and they all feel that need. But when things got really tough, he asked a silly question, which I was very happy for. He said, "Dad, can I come home?" I'm like, "Of
Ugh,
course you can."
always.
Again, I get emotional, right?
Yeah.
And so he had some great successes. He had some failures, but
Yeah.
and this is what we need to learn: failures do not define us, and they do not define our children.
Yeah. I think and then you talk about this, it goes all the way to adulthood, you guys.
Yeah, yeah,
And there's something really good in here that I liked, that I thought was really cool, and I wanted you to kind of maybe talk about it a little bit, but it says, "I hope my children grow into mature adults that not only long for authentic relationship with me, but more importantly, long for an authentic relationship with God. It is my prayer that my children move from a conventional faith to an integrative faith, where they no longer adopt my faith, but rather have a vibrant faith of their own."
yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about, and then you have this I'm going to show it on the screen. If you don't see video, you're not going to know what I'm talking about. So you're going to have to buy the book. All right. So
Yeah,
this is the table that I'm talking about.
yeah,
But it's just so good. Talking about the authentic leader. Can you talk a little bit about all of that and what
yeah.
that all how that all comes together at the very, like, I've raised my kid there. This is what's happening now.
Yeah, I think again, so if you look at Fowler's faith development, so I put a lot of not just theology and practice in here, but obviously
Yeah.
developmental skills. And so when you look at Fowler talks about when you're younger, you take on the faith of your parents and your grandparents, which is kind of good because it's
Hmm.
modeled, right? But
Right.
at some point, you have to become the model, right? And so
Yeah.
what we're looking for is how do we help our children become now, what this means, and I know this will drive some parents crazy, that means your child is it's going to feel like your child is rejecting your faith.
Yes.
the things that you've instilled in them. But they're not. They're actually asking harder questions
Mhm.
to make to where they internalize their own faith and they own it rather than the
Yeah.
faith of their parents, right? Which means there's going to be some hard struggles in there. And I want my kids. I just preached to my congregation. I'm a part-time pastor too. And I said, for instance, like the beauty of the Psalms is they're not polite prayers.
No, they're
In our
messy.
Christianity, I'm sorry, go ahead.
They're messy.
Oh, they're messy. And
So
in our
messy.
Christianity, we have like polite Christianity,
Mhm.
but I want my kids to ask hard questions and I want them
Yes.
to own their faith because pop culture is probably the worst thing that we can do. Like, for instance, I'm sorry, I'm going to step on some toes maybe.
Do it.
It makes me frustrated when I hear pastors or youth pastors when a really hard question comes like, why do babies die? Where was God during the Holocaust? I mean, all these hard questions. And the worst thing we could tell a person is, well, you just got to take it on faith, right?
Mm.
I'm like, oh my goodness. So what that tells them is there's no answers to their deeper questions. And I believe there are answers to their deeper question. That's an
Yeah.
authentic faith.
Yeah.
An authentic faith is one like Job who asks hard, he never rejects God.
No.
He never curses God, but boy, he sure does ask some hard
He
questions, doesn't he?
questions some things.
Yeah, and I think that's what we need to not be afraid of because pop culture theology, pop culture answers are the worst. They actually drive people away from their faith. Like,
Mm.
a mother loses her baby in miscarriage, right? And why God? There's all these questions. And people mean well. They say silly stuff like, well, God just needed another little angel. Well, listen, if I were a parent, number one, theologically, humans and angels are different things. But number two,
Yes.
that would make me think, boy, God sure is selfish, right?
Yeah. Why would he give me a baby and then take it away?
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Or this one too, like again, like, we're all God's children. That's not true. What do you do when,
Yeah.
Jesus looks at the Pharisees and says, you're children of the devil,
Yep.
right? There's hard questions in there. And so that's
Yeah.
an authentic faith is help our kids struggle through hard questions. And to be honest with you, sometimes them asking us hard questions will force us to dig deeper in the areas that we avoided when we were more immature in our faith.
Yeah. And maybe we never actually asked those questions and got to the answer of them. And now that's
Yeah.
what scares us when our kids start to ask it. Because it's like, I've never really tangled with that one myself. And it's God's way of going gently, because he's a good God, but he's not going to
Yes.
let you slide on things.
Right. And that's why I think we experience that compassion and that
Yeah.
authenticity. I mean, and here's the funny thing is like, we don't say prayers that God already knows is on our heart, which means
Yeah.
that we're being disingenuous, right? We're like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to hide this from God. Like, really? Seriously?
Who do you think God even is?
Like, oh, God's going to go, oh, that really shocked me. That surprised
What?
me, right?
No way.
Yeah. And I think those hard questions, and also, I got to
Hmm.
say this too churches have got to stop saying things like, well, youth are the church of the future, but we do nothing to prepare them to be the church now if they're believers, right?
Yeah.
So get them in there intergenerationally. I have 6, 7, 8-year-olds that take up the offering in our church,
That's so
you know,
good.
and they, I don't want to say they fight over it, but they can't miss doing it. They love
Yeah.
doing it, right?
Yeah.
Kids who are learning to do AV or with adults who are, get them up there and if they have the opportunity, teach them how to preach. Start with sharing their testimony, right?
Hmm.
Get them in the band. My point being, all these things where they have ownership of their faith and ownership of their
Yeah.
church life,
Yeah.
that's what allows them have an authentic faith.
That's so good. That's so good. Man, I could talk to you all day, and I hope that we do again sometime. I mean, I
Hope
know
so
we
too.
will, because there's things you've already told me there's a couple things you've got in the works that I'm like, well, we need to talk about those too. But I just am so grateful that you were on the podcast today. You guys, I can't enough recommend this book. Really, truly,
Yeah.
it really is. I can't even remember how many pages it is. 127 pages.
Yeah.
You can do this. This is not hard. It is something that is going to bless you. It's going to transform your family. It's going to transform the way that your family does things, the way that they approach the world, their neighborhood.
Yeah.
What a blessing it would be to have a family who is invested in discipleship and then determines as a family that they're going to invest in another family and
And can
just
I
see
say,
what happens. Yeah.
sorry, I would say a great format too is in small groups. Man, this is a great book to
Yes.
go through. I actually had someone who called me and said, we're using this book in our Sunday school and it's just dynamic.
Yeah,
And
it's
so going through
incredible.
it together with other parents so you don't feel like you're alone.
Yeah, yeah, it's so good. So if you have a small group at your church, which you should, a lot of churches, I mean, if you're going to a massive big church, there you should be in a small group.
Yeah.
So, and
Yes.
if you don't have one, start one. That's a good idea. And this is a good
Yeah.
one to start. And,
Awesome.
and don't shy away from it, guys. Don't do it. Get involved. Get it. If you're a homeschool family, which most of you who listen are, this is an awesome book for you to use. Get your teenagers even to start thinking about it. Your adults, make it a baby shower gift. What a
Oh,
great baby shower gift. Christmas is coming. There's, brothers and I mean, I'm just
you're too
promoting
kind.
the crud out of this thing, but that's what we're doing. I love this book, you guys. It's good.
Oh my gosh, that's so
And
good.
so I'm just so thankful for you, Dr. Griffith, and just what you've done here, and your heart and passion just comes through in the way that you speak, but the way that you write, and it's just such a blessing to those of us who get a chance to read it and to listen to you. So I'm just so grateful you were here today, and I know that my listeners probably feel the same way. So thank you so much.
If I can, folks can always
Yeah.
reach out to me, RW Griffith at TFC, like Tacoma Falls College, RW Griffith at TFC.
Perfect. I will put that in the description of this podcast along with where to find all his stuff because you're going to want it. So thank you guys so much for listening and joining with us today. I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful day, and just really take seriously the discipleship of your family. This is not the day and age to let that slide. This is really not. The more than ever in the history of our world, this is the time to disciple your kids. So
Right.
we just really are so grateful. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, and share. I have to say that to everybody. So like, subscribe, and share. And just enjoy your day. God bless you. We at Mache pray for you. We care about you. If you need anything, our link is in the description of this podcast. Thank you guys so much. Goodbye.